Hello and welcome everybody to another fantastic episode of the AI Show. My name is Seth Juarez. Made a huge mistake, so I set this for 11 p.m. instead of 11 a.m. Oops. Sorry about that. But here we are on time. It's Friday morning here. Friday afternoon for other folks. Where's everybody coming from, by the way? Oh, Yvonne is here. Hello, everyone. Bienvenida. Thank you for coming. Jay McCormick. Jay McCormick. I feel like I should be an announcer at an auto show. You know what I'm saying? Lowest prices on the lot. I mean, would you buy a car for me? I probably wouldn't. All right, let's... MMA announcer. In the blue corner, the Annihilator. Did that work for y'all? All right, let me share my screen. Share screen. This one. Boop. Let's see if it works. It's not working. I'm sharing too many things. You're not going to miss this episode of the AI Show. We talk about wrong thing. That's later. Apologies for that. I'm sharing the wrong thing. What's the matter with me today? That's not it. Let's try this one. That's it. Thank you. For my pandemic purchase that I use every Friday faithfully. I'm sharing too many things, okay? Sharing too many things. So today, we're going to be showing you 4 things. Now, some of these folks might show up. Others might not, because I think they're on vacation. And I was like, if you're on vacation, don't show up. That's why we record these things. But I can probably answer questions, so. And then special surprise guest, hopefully. If they come. Number 1. Oh, that's really up there. I don't know why. I was looking at the wrong screen. Number 1. Today, intro to CLI v2 plus SDK v2. CLI v2 plus SDK v2 for Azure Machine Learning. That is going to be with Bala. Oops. Man, I am just all over the place. What does it matter with me today? Hello, Victor. How's it going, my friend? So intro to CLI v2 and SDK v2. I am just, like, it's just, what's going on today, friends? It feels like a Monday, Friday. You know? Okay. Number two. Here we go. Number 2. Managed. Oh, man, what, am I pushing the wrong thing? Have I been so out of practice? Managed online endpoints. And this is with Sethu, who has probably one of the greatest names ever. Now with a U in it. This is wrong. I'm going to take that out. Delete. Okay. Number 3. Responsible AI dashboard with Minsoo, who was in our keynote extraordinaire thing the other day. So she's gonna be here. Well, hopefully, like, we'll see. But for sure, we're gonna show some stuff that she built. And then number 4, of course, hot off the presses, the evolution of PVA. which is going to be absolutely fantastic. Evolution of Power Virtual Agents. That's what we're doing today, friends. So I thought before we did that, just a little around the world. Where's everybody coming to us from? Number one. Number two, how's it going? Everybody good? By the way, this is what 4 things we're doing. Everybody good? Evolution of Seth AI. We built a custom voice thing that sounded just like me. It was uncanny. Scared my kids. Not gonna lie. So maybe we won't do that. It scared them. It didn't sound like that because that sounds like someone with indigestion, not someone that's super scary. I mean, it's just me. It's just me. Okay. All right. So what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna lower this down, and I am going to remove my screen. Remove my screen. Stop screen. Boop. And then we're gonna start with the first thing: Intro to CLI v2 with Bala, who's awesome. So let me add that. You're not going to want to miss this episode of the AI Show where we talk about the new Azure Machine Learning CLI version 2 and SDK v2 with my friend Bala. Make sure you tune in. Hello and welcome to this wonderful episode of the AI Show. We're going to talk about the new Azure Machine Learning CLI version 2 and SDK version 2. I've got my friend Bala. Bala, why don't you tell us who you are and what you do?
Hey, Seth, my name is Bala Venkataraman. I'm a PM in the Azure Machine Learning team, and we're currently working on releasing the SDK and CLI for our customers.
So we've had an SDK and a CLI since the dawn of humankind, or at least the dawn of Azure Machine Learning humankind. What's new?
Yep. Okay. So I'm going to show you something. So what's new in the CLI and SDK v2? So the CLI currently, the new CLI we have supports a whole bigger range of products, a bigger range of surface area across the Azure Machine Learning. And what's new with this is with the new CLI, you can do Azure Machine Learning with a language of your choice. You don't have to learn any new language. We support Python, we support R, we support Java, Julia, or C#. So no pressures, no need to learn a new language. And since we are doing the CLI v2 with command lines, and it supports pretty much every operation in Azure Machine Learning, automation and deployment becomes that much more easier. Now we have also some new features which comes with CLI v2, which is our managed inferencing and reusable components for our pipeline, so that you don't have to keep writing components again and again. Now, what do we get with the SDK v2? We've got all this goodness in CLI v2. We want to make sure that all this goodness is passed on to the Python SDK v2 as well. So Python SDK v2 has all this consistency and support, which we have in CLI v2, but also we've now improved the Python SDK so that we have Python functions which help us to build any workflow. And this also helps us to go from simple to complex tasks a lot more easily than before.
So this is amazing. Can you show us? I'd love to see like some of the new things in there.
Of course. So let's do some show and tell. To start with, let's look at the command line. All right, so here's what AZML or the new CLI shows. This shows us the list of commands, what we could do with AZML, AZML -- help. So now let's look at one of the things here, which is job. Let's see what we could do with jobs. So let me type AZML job -- help. And it shows us that, hey, this is what a job means. And you can do archive, cancel, create, download, list, restore, show, stream, update, a bunch of stuff, right? Pretty simple. Now, we saw another thing. Let's look at another example. AZML, let's say model -- help. And there you go. So with model, it tells us what the model is and what can we do? Archive, create, download, list, restore, show, update. So if you can see, we can do pretty much most of the same things across all assets in a consistent way, job or model or many other things. So that brings the consistency part into the CLI, and it's easy. You don't have to keep learning new things over and over again for every new asset you try to work with in Azure Machine Learning.
Bala, this has been really cool so far. I mean, I love learning about the commands, AZML, and it's cool that you can look through it. Do you get any other help with the command line stuff?
Yes. So I use this cool tool called Visual Studio Code. While you can do YAML in anything, I prefer using Visual Studio Code because it has these awesome features like autocomplete and whatnot. So let's say I want to use a compute. I go here and I press Control Space, and it shows me, hey, these are the bunch of stuff I have. So I can use this compute, and I want an environment. And I can do a Control Space here, and it gives me a bunch of curated environments in my stuff. And let's say, hey, I'm not playing nice with it. I just used input, and it gives me a squiggly line saying it's not okay. So which means I should mean input. So it allows me autocomplete, and it gives syntax corrections and IntelliSense right here. So I love the VS Code for that.
I mean, this is before we get to it, because I want to make sure that there's clarity. This YAML is stuff that you pass into the command line that describes the job. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, well, let's go take a look at a job real quick.
Okay. Now this command job, I say that, hey, I have some source files in this director's src. I want to run this command, which is python main.py, and I want to pass one parameter, which is a diabetes CSV parameter, and the input for that parameter is this. Now I've defined this input here, which I'm saying is a file, and it's available in this path. I want to run it in this environment. I want to run it using this compute and display name and experiment name. Simple YAML file. Now, since I am in Visual Studio Code, I can just click this button here, which is the execute YAML, and it's going to just execute the YAML. Or I could also just say AZML job create -- file and this job.yaml. So both ways are okay. The Visual Studio Code just makes it easier by clicking this button. Now I'm running this command for a Python job. I could run a similar command for R as well. So this is what that thing does. Pretty much everything is the same. Code is in source. Inputs are this. Our environment is this. The only thing which is different is, hey, command R script, this file and this data. So very simple, pretty much the same way of running commands for both Python or R. So that brings us how easy the language is, right? And not just single jobs. The next one is a pipeline. I have multiple jobs here. Say I have a prep job, I have a transform job, and I have a train job and predict job. All of them are defined in pretty much the same way, right? Type, input, outputs, environment, compute, and what is a command? And I run them also using the same way AZML job create this pipeline.yaml. Now, when I run these on the browser, after they run, what happens is, let's look at the diabetes example, what we ran. It completed with these inputs, which you saw I provided in the YAML file. The R example also ran the same way. And the pipeline, which I told you had 5 steps, ran like this.
Interesting. This is cool because it allows you to declaratively describe machine learning things. And look, I have said this for many years. ML ops isn't a product. It's the union of people and process and products. And you're saying that here with the CLI, you can create any kind of, like, you can probably put this into a GitHub action or whatever other workflow thing that you want to do for your job.
Yes, absolutely.
That's cool. So tell us about the SDK. Anything to show us there?
Yes. So now I have an SDK. What I want to show are 2 things here. First is how simple it is for the SDK. The SDK, I am creating a command, which is a command job, which you saw in this diabetes. And let's look at the SDK now. The SDK also constructs the command in a very, very similar fashion, right? It has a code, it has a command, it has inputs, environment, compute, display, and then you run it saying that my ML client create or update a job, right? And it's not, so very similar function. You create a function and run it. The good part is if I want to create a pipeline with multiple steps, it is exactly the same way. So in this example, I have two commands. One is a train command, which, like I showed you, I'm creating the same way, a command and code and everything. And then I have a predict command, which also I do the same way. Now, how do I build a pipeline? I say, hey, I have this new DSL functionality in pipeline in Azure ML, and I say, hey, this is my pipeline. This is my two steps, and the first step is the train command which I created with these inputs. The second step is the predict command which I created with these inputs. So anyone who is a lover of Python and loves Python functions can see that this is just a very simple way of doing it. So I can have two Python functions and say, this is my pipeline. And then what do? I just submit it the same way. Hey, ML client jobs create this pipeline. That's it. So the SDK makes it it's improved in the sense that it's more Python friendly and it is very consistent with the CLI. So it's easy for people to move across CLI and SDK depending on where you want to go.
And look, I may pretend I haven't done some of this stuff, but I've been using Azure Machine Learning for years. And it's, to me, and this is the first time I've seen the new version of the SDK, it's really cool that the way the SDK is organized almost looks exactly like the YAML, in the sense that, like, you could interchange them. You could use the nouns or you could use the verbs from the SDK. So I guess a good question is, when would you suggest using one versus the other?
Yes. So let's look at that. The SDK and YAML are both extremely good things in your arsenal. The SDK is suitable when you're agnostic to languages, right? You're not necessarily a lover of one language, but you want to stick with your language, but want to use Azure ML. So that is a very great fit for an SDK, for a CLI scenario, I'm sorry. So the CLI is suitable when you don't want to stick to a particular language, but you want to be able to use any one of these languages like Python or Java, Julia, or C#. And the CLI is also really suitable for production sort of workflows where you just want to have simple command lines and have automation and deployment. It's very lightweight. The SDK, the Python SDK v2, is suitable obviously for all Python lovers, right? It's good for development, especially Python lovers who want to use it for development can use it. They can build simple commands or a chain of commands using Python-like functions, and it helps you to move from smaller to bigger easily. Like I showed you, just build command after command and then hook them up together. So if you're a Python lover and want some of those really cool stuff, what we've offered in terms of Pythonic way of doing things, stick to Python SDK v2. But if you are not necessarily hardcore on Python and want to do a lot of automation and lightweight deployments, CLI is the thing for you. And you could also move from SDK v2 for development. And once you have all your stuff, since we are very similar in how we construct stuff, you can convert the SDK function, the SDK Python functions into YAML file and use them in production as well. So that's an option too.
I mean, really cool. I love all of the I love the choices that you have when you do this. Thanks so much for spending some time with us, Bala. Question: where can people go to find out more?
Yes. So the CLI is available in aka.ms AML CLI v2. And for SDK, you can go to aka.ms AML SDK v2.
Fantastic. I'll put those links up again. AML CLI v2 and then SDK v2. Thanks so much for spending some time with us, my friend. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We've been learning all about the new Azure Machine Learning CLI v2 and SDK v2 on the AI Show. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Take care. How about them apples? That was cool, right? It's actually really cool. I will take questions on that because I actually know how this stuff works. I don't use the SDK as much, but I do use the YAML stuff right now. Indeed, Balu, This is awesome. My dream is to become a Microsoft engineer, but unfortunately, I'm also from Latin America. They only hire from Europe. We have development shops in places like Argentina and Mexico. I'm from Mexico. Well, I wasn't born there. My mom was born there, but I'm Mexican too. So yeah, Juarez is like one of the greatest Hispanics. Here, let me show you some stuff because we got about 10 minutes, and I want to hear some of your questions too. But let me share my screen. Share screen. I want to share this one. Share. Let me add to stream. Boom. Okay. So if you haven't seen this, we actually released all of our samples from Build. Now let me put myself in the screen. So if you're looking at like the text generation model, here, let me show you what it looks like. This one right here. Well, let me for endpoint. Homer endpoints test. Crud, I don't remember actually how it works. Let me go see. I don't remember how it works. Here. Okay, let's go to the score here. What am I looking for here? Prompt. Okay, prompt. So if I prompt this thing, prompt, complete the sentence in the style of Homer. If I hit test, hopefully it works. Crossing our fingers. Boom. Complete the sentence, which the king. Hold on. This feels very. Let me make it super, super epic. Complete the sentence which the king desired. And on seeing it carried away, he sent away the child and the prize which he had given 100-fold. By the way, this is just this is the whole example of a GPT-2 text completion refined in the style of Homer. But the cool thing about it is we use the new YAML format. The new YAML format to describe these things called components. And then these components were things that you could, oh, hey, it's teaching me stuff. What's new in the action bar? Oh, delightful. Thank you. Got it. So notice that we have version 8 of the Hugging Face Transformer model. We have our Homer Books data set being processed by this component right here. Let me zoom it a little bit. By this component right here, and then fine-tuned with version 14. It's super small, but version 14 of this thing, which has very specific inputs and very specific outputs, which is soup's cool, right? Because the thing that was cool about it is we made a CI/CD process that automatically corrects or fixes these components. So let me show you what this code behind looks like. Well, I think you can actually go to it. This is the snapshot of the code here. Basically, looks like it brought in way too many things, and I need to fix that. But basically, it takes the name of the model and loads it up and saves it to an output path, which is really cool. And that code is right here. So that's these components that you're looking at. So, for example, the Hugging Face component is this. It has a couple of inputs and an output, and this is how you define it using YAML. And then you just say AZ component. We'll do a help here so we can see what it does. AZ component here. Let me control plus this so you can see it. Oh, it's AZ ML component help. My bad. And you'll see this is the stuff you can do with components. You can archive, create, list, restore, show, update. And so AZ component list minus O table. Boop. And now you can do some pretty. Oh, jeez. I forgot ML. What is the matter with me? What is a matter with me? All right, so here we go. AZML component list. These are all the components that we've built. And so when it comes to my fat face is in the way. What is the matter with me? When it comes to actual ML ops, imagine having reusable bits of functionality that you can then reusable bits that you can then repurpose and use throughout your machine learning place. It's delightful. I mean, for me, delightful. And then I even made this because I didn't know how it worked. And so I was like, I just want to see, what gets passed. And this was just me testing stuff out. Let me see if I can find what the output looked like. It was cool. So no, we'll go back to here. Let's go to the component. Oh man, we have so many. I have so many. Oh my gosh. How do I add it? Let me see. Pathy. There you go. Generic path checker. Let's go to the component view definition. There it is. You can see it's all in there. But let's see if I can find the last run of it, because maybe I can't. Maybe I can find view component detail, copy component ID, view component detail. Here it is. This is cool. These are the job. Oh, well, it looks like I deleted the runs of the job, but it was really cool. It showed the paths and things that were passed in. But you can see this is just a really nice way of doing MLOps with the new CLI, which I just showed you, and components. Any questions, by the way, about this stuff? Again, you can totally go and use this stuff yourself. It's over here under Azure Samples Locutus, not of Borg origin. Okay. This sample takes folks through the end-to-end of deploying Judy over Hugging Face. We wrote up a detailed walkthrough of how to set everything up. Yeah. We left nothing to chance, my friends. Well, and if there's issues, you please submit them. I go through the issues probably every Friday right before the show, but this should set everything up for you. You can go through and do it. Okay, here's a question. Let me bring it over here. Oh, no, you're right. I can't bring you there because I'm sure. Can we automate computer vision tasks with Azure CLI, other cognitive services, or just ML stuff? So the Azure CLI, you can do cognitive services stuff. But I'm not as familiar with it. So let me see. AZ help. I think it's like AZ Cog Services or something. Let's see what we got. I think I'm. This is too embiggened. Okay, A B B C. Let's do a little searchy. Azure CLI Cognitives. I've done this before. Here it is. AZ login, AZ account list, AZ group create. Yeah. So it looks like I don't really have to do anything. Choose a cognitive service, blah, 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 computer vision. Yeah, show me how to do it. Okay, AZ account. Here we go. Oh, there's a little copy thing here. So let's open this up and let's see if we can do the thing. Boop. Boom. So yeah, these are the things that are available via cognitive service. So computer vision, for example. And I think custom vision, I don't know if custom vision has a CLI. Oh, it does. Boom. Right there. So to answer your question, Victor, yes, indeedy, lemon squeezy. You can indeed do stuff with cognitive services in the CLI. Okay. Any other questions? Feel free to put them into the chat. I want to answer them, but I'll refer back to some of this stuff because I think some of the other things that we're going to show, like managed online endpoints and the RAI dashboard. I didn't get into the RAI dashboard as much, so I admit there's so much there, and maybe Minsoo can help us on later shows get into that. So, oh, Bala's here. Hey, Bala.
Hello.
How's it going, buddy?
Good. How are you?
Good. Did you see the replay? You were just stellar, man, in that video.
Thank you.
Was people cried, they laughed. It was a spiritual experience for some of us. I mean, am I right, chat? Just let us know. Did you have a spirit? Yeah, and I was showing them our sample from Build and how we used the CLI and component YAML definitions to do some really interesting ML ops. Here, let me show you a thing. You'll like this. It's a little ugly, and Bala, maybe you can tell me if I did it wrong or not. But we wanted to do CI/CD with components, so that anytime you change the component and checked it in, I did make a mistake. You'll see it in a second. But here is the GitHub action that changes it. Here, let me control plus this. You'll get a little giggle out of this. Here's the Azure CLI to set the defaults. And here is me going through the folder, looking for diffs in any of the components, anything in the components folder that's a Python or a YAML file. For each diff, I get the version and update it.
Awesome. Nice. Okay.
So is this the right way to do it, or should we?
Well, this is one of the ways of doing it.
Hold on. He was like, every time this is one of the ways, Seth. It's like a really nice way of saying, dude, help us out, Bala.
No. So yeah, I mean, you could use you're using GitHub Actions, which is right into this, but you could have a separate pipeline which does this. But yeah, pretty much they're going to do the same thing, right? See if there's a newer file and create it again. And I don't know if you have to do a last version +1. It'll do it automatically for you.
Oh, that's new. Oh, so maybe I should update this. So it will automatically, if I go to a component, it will automatically look at the version.
Yeah, it's just going to create the next version for you. So
this is wonderful. I'm going to screw up our metrics. How likely are you to recommend Azure Machine Learning to a friend or colleague? What do you think, Bala? I think I'm going to. I'm definitely going to.
Yeah, I'm a little biased, so I'll let you do it. But I know what you're going to say.
But here's the one thing that I did that was a mistake. Notice that all of my components are in one folder.
Yeah.
And when I do the YAML, right, it says here's the code, but it uploads the entire folder. And so maybe I should put components in their own folder. I mean, what do you?
Yes. So usually what we do is if you're using source code, local source code for components, we put that in one folder. And if we're using, sometimes people use local data as well to work with a component. So source and data it's a good practice to have them in separate folders. Maybe even within a component, if you're having 10 components, you can create folders for each of them. Or if you don't want at least all the source files separate from the YAML files themselves, that way you don't have to upload everything. But yes,
because
don't lump them all together.
This is wow, it worked on this one. This one seemed to only get the. But I think one of them. Which one was it? Is it this one? If I go to the snapshot, maybe I fixed it. Maybe we fixed it. I don't know. I don't know what version this is. I think I saw that and I fixed it. But when in the earlier runs, you'll see here. Let me show you. So let me go to my designer here and let me go to my earlier run. In my earlier run, when you look at the actual component, you can see the snapshot has all of them. But there's new default versions. I think I fixed. There's new default versions of the components, and so I think I fixed it. So the little red dots means there's new versions of these things. So, dude, anything else you want to add about the coolness of the new CLI? I don't use the SDK very often. I use the CLI and the YAML. You mentioned briefly why you would use the two. Can you go into it just one more time?
Yep. So the CLI has its own fan base, right? I mean, there are people who don't necessarily like to work with Python. There are a lot of R users out there who don't want to create Python scripts. So for them, not having to work with the Python SDK and work directly with CLI is super useful. And like I said, CLI currently supports 5 different languages. So if you have scripts in any of those languages, you could just use the CLI to run any of them. So you don't have to learn a new language. You just use the existing language, which you already know, and you use command lines and YAML. YAML is not, I'm assuming YAML is not a language, and pretty much people can easily start using YAML. So as long as you're able to learn the YAML syntax and a few command lines, you should be able to get started with Azure ML a lot more easily. And the reason I like CLI is that's how a lot of data scientists work today, right? They have scripts in some language or the other running on their local machine, and then they just want it to work on the cloud. That's how people move. And in that case, CLI is a very easy way. Take your scripts, keep them as it is, uh, put them into CLI and say, what is the input, what is the output, and run it on this specific workspace on the cloud, and it just runs. So very little changes to what you've already worked on, and just reuse it as it is. So CLI is really good in that way. The other reason why I would use CLI is because it's command lines, right? So anywhere where there is automation, you just showed in your own GitHub workflow. All you need to do was put in a few command lines, and you're able to run it. It's very lightweight for automation deployment and any MLOps. So it's more suited for MLOps than a heavyweight SDK. SDKs are usually you have to do a lot more installs and a lot more commands to run stuff, but CLI is a lot more lightweight and easier for MLOps scenarios. So those two are places where you would like. The SDK also has its uses, right? There are Python geeks out here who are super comfortable working with Python and Jupyter notebooks and a lot of other stuff. For them, hey, I want to play around with Python. I want to iterate. Development is usually easier when you're trying a lot of new stuff. A code-based interface is easier for them, so they can use. If you're Python lovers, you should definitely use the SDK. And the SDK is improved. I know we've had SDK from a long time, but this new SDK is very Pythonic in the sense that a single task or a pipeline of tasks or pretty much anything you build here is like a Python function. It's called command. You build a Python function, you embed multiple functions within a function, it becomes a pipeline. If that function is just a single function running one thing, it's just a command. But a, a nested function with other things running inside it is a pipeline. So things like that. And you can also, we've made it better to add things on top. If you look at CLI also is pretty much like that. You have jobs and you can have multiple components in a pipeline. So CLI is very incremental. The SDK also has now built on the goodness of that. You can run a command, you can add sweep on top of that, you can add a bunch of commands together into a pipeline and things like that. So we've made it easier to go from small to big, from simple to complex using SDK, which
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. And like I said, it's just like some people like to put peanut butter on their hamburgers and other people don't. Either way, it tastes good because it's still a hamburger. Unless you're vegetarian, then obviously tofu burger with peanut butter sounds delightful to someone. By the way, I wasn't kidding. Jay is saying it was an out-of-body experience. So
wow, nice. Thank you. Yeah, the thing is, it could be used together also. You could do all your development in SDK, and once your SDK is ready and you have your total pipelines ready, you can just do a print pipeline, which gives you a neat YAML from the SDK, and download that, copy paste that into YAML file, and run it in CLI. Yep.
I love it. Well, my friend, next up we have Sethu, who is going to show us about managed online endpoints now in GA. So I'm going to add that to the stream. And you're not going to want to miss this episode of the AI Show where we talk about managed online endpoints now generally available. My good friend Sethu, make sure you tune in. Hello and welcome to this episode of the AI Show. We're talking about managed online endpoints now generally available as of Microsoft Build 2022. I've got my good friend Sethu. All right, my friend, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hey, Seth. My name is Sethu Raman, and I'm a product manager in Azure ML, driving the managed endpoints capability.
Fantastic. Now, this is probably one of my favorite features of all of Azure Machine Learning, because getting models into production is probably the hardest part of all of this. For those that don't know about this feature, why don't you give us the elevator pitch?
Yeah, absolutely. So managed endpoints gives you a turnkey way to deploy your ML models in scale at production without you having to worry about the underlying infrastructure. In your previous sessions that we had in the AI show, we talked about how you can do interactive debugging, how you can configure auto scaling, and how you can roll out a new version of the model using your CI/CD pipelines.
Yeah,
And,
and it's been really cool to be able to do that, because not having to worry about all that stuff is awesome. So tell us, what's the new stuff as of Microsoft Build?
Yeah, so I have some exciting stuff to share today. Other than that, we are launching general availability in Build. Firstly, I brought a demo with me to show how users can scale to really, really high requests per second in a short amount of time with capability of our GitOps friendly APIs.
I love it. Let me roll it right now.
In this demo, I'm going to show you how users can self-serve their way to 100,000 queries per second. This will unblock large customers who were reluctant to onboard because of scale concerns. Shall we? Let's look at the setup, starting with the basics. We have a 32-core VM to run the load test. Here is the managed online endpoint and deployment. Here each box represents a node, also called as an instance. Let's take a look at setup of one node. It's an 8-core machine. In this example, you can see only one worker process containing the inferencing components. To increase CPU utilization, we can increase the number of workers. This is our test setup. Since it's an 8-core machine, we configured 8 workers to increase the CPU utilization while not affecting the latency. We will use scikit-learn's diabetes model from our default example. Creating this deployment using our GitOps friendly CLI is very straightforward. First, we configure the deployment properties in the YAML file. Here we have the instance type. You can see it's an 8-core F-series machine. And instance count, currently we just need one node. And then the worker count that we saw is 8. Now we fire the create command using the CLI, passing the YAML as the input. Now let's run the load test using a popular tool called WRK. It outputs the QPS and tail latencies. Let's see it in a better format. In our one node test, we got a peak QPS of 1600 and tail latencies of P50 to P90 between 4.7 to 6.2 milliseconds. Now let's increase the scale up to 50 instances and run our tests. It is as simple as running the update command with the instance count set as 50. In 5.5 minutes, we are open for business. Typically, this takes somewhere between 5 to 7 minutes. Though, for our purposes, 50 nodes are enough. Let's do a quick sidebar on what it takes to scale up to 150 nodes. We use the same update command now with the instance count as 150. And in this case, we are all set within 7 minutes. I ran the load tests on not only 50 instances, but also on intermediate node configurations. Let's compare. This slide shows the output for different test configurations, starting from 1 node, 10 node, and all the way through to 50 nodes. First, let's compare the tail latencies. For a single node configuration, you can see the P50 to P90 latencies are between 4.7 to 6.2 milliseconds. For 50 node cluster, you can see it is from 5.1 to 8.2 milliseconds. These seems to be reasonably close given the scale. You can also see the distribution of the QPS across these various nodes. Now let's see a plot of them. Here the x-axis shows the number of the nodes and the y-axis has the QPS. The plot shows near linear scale of QPS with respect to nodes. Let's get back to our original goal to achieve 100k QPS. With the same cost, that is, with 50 nodes, can we achieve 100k QPS? We can try this if we are willing to trade off increase in tail latencies. We can tune for high throughput by increasing the worker count. In this case, we'll push the boundary by changing the worker count from 8 to 48 per node. Now, let's run the test with a 50 node cluster with the increased worker count. You can see that we have in fact reached 100,000 QPS. Yay! Let's compare. You can see that the new configuration has better QPS. But we had to trade off with the increase in tail latencies. This is good enough for our use case. However, we can always easily add more nodes to reduce the latencies. To summarize, high-scale customers can now self-serve their way to hundreds of thousands of QPS.
So just a couple of, because that, first of all, that was awesome. 100K queries per, that's QPS means queries per second.
Yes.
In under 7 minutes, but able to deploy that. Fantastic. You mentioned tail latencies, and there was like, I think it was P50, P60, P. What does that mean?
So when you want to measure the user experience of the clients that's making the request, the response time, people, average is one way to do that, but it does not capture the stragglers. Tail latencies, for example, P90, let's say it's 6 milliseconds. That means that 90% of your users will experience latency of 6 milliseconds or less.
Oh, I see. So it's basically the latency for the percentage of people, the best percentage, the best latency for the 50%, 60%, 90%. Did I get that right?
That is perfect.
Then the other thing that was maybe, go ahead.
Yeah. So when you, for like applications which have very tight SLA, they typically may like measure, let's say P90, P95, or sometimes even P99 latencies. That's what they care about.
Oh, I see. Okay, this makes a lot more sense. The second thing that was not altogether clear for me was that the increasing worker count, increasing node count, causing issues. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So the overall goal of this demo is to first of all showcase to users, hey, you are able to kind of really scale up to very high requests per second or queries per second by using configuration, our declarative API. And that our system is kind of open. So when we, in each worker, let's say in our case, we had like an 8 CPU machine, and initially we started with 8 workers or like 8 processes, right? So these are the inference containers and 8 processes that are running that will kind of serve the request. And if we, there is still more, a lot of times these processes wait. They're not using the CPU all the time. So when they are 8, okay, they're doing good. Because we match one CPU core to this indirectly. But when I want to squeeze more juice out of the CPU, I can keep adding more processes. But then there's going to be, the trade-off is going to be, you're going to be able to handle more requests, but because of the lot of context switching that happens, there is going to be additional latency. So that's the trade-off. So if you have very low latency application, you don't want to, squeeze a lot of workers. But if you are willing to trade off and you want to reduce your cost, then that's a good way.
Okay, so I think I understand. Basically, each worker, if you're on an 8 CPU machine, if there's 8 workers, then they're pseudo mapped one to CPU. But then the more workers that you have, the more contention there is between context switching, etc.
That's right.
Fantastic. Any other cool things, announcements from Microsoft Build that you want to talk about?
Absolutely. So I have 2 new features that we are public reviewing as a part of Managed Online Endpoints based on a lot of customer asks. So I'll give you like a quick sneak peek of what's coming here.
Let's do it.
So the first one is mirror traffic. Seth, if you recall in your last show, we talked about safe rollout. In this, we talked about how you can use percentage of live traffic diverted to a new version of the model, and then make sure that model is working properly before we divert more traffic to that model and become 100% from blue to green, right?
I remember that.
Yeah. So one of the challenges with that issue, with that capability is when you transfer live traffic, let's say even you transfer 5% of live traffic to a new model to test, what if the deployment is faulty? There are some issues with that. Then your SLA is going to be affected because 5% of your requests might fail now. So what we are launching right now is a capability called mirror traffic, in which, as you can see in the picture, the V1 of the model will still continue to take 100%, but now you give a percentage of that as a mirror traffic. In this case, I'm diverting 10% traffic to the green, but the response from green is not sent back to the client. So it's like done internally, but still you can go and measure your metrics to make sure that, hey, am I meeting my response time requirements? Are there no errors? So you can see all your metrics and make sure SLA is doing good before you divert real traffic to it. So that's the mirror traffic capability.
That's really cool. Like, 'cause I can imagine scenarios where you might not even want to divert. Let's just say you have an SLA of 3 nines, for example, and you divert 5% of your traffic to green when it doesn't work at all and you don't know. All of a sudden, you're at 95%, which is not good. This basically just mirrors the traffic, and then you can monitor how it's handling the requests.
That is right. That is right.
That's really
Exactly.
cool.
And to use this, it's very straightforward. And you can see in the bottom, you would have users would have seen this online endpoint update API already available. You just need to set this mirror traffic, and you can set it to whatever percentage that is needed.
Amazing. That's really cool. Any others, or do you still have any other surprises?
Yes, one more thing.
Cool.
A big ask from our enterprise customers. This is the network isolation support. We worked on this to make sure it's as declarative and simple for people to adopt, rather than people go and configure a lot of NSG rules in their VNet. We want to reduce the setup overhead here. So here we support both ingress, network isolation for both ingress and egress through private endpoints. So the first command, so it shows you how you can secure the ingress to a private endpoint to your online endpoint through private endpoint, workspace private endpoint. So all you need to do is, when you do the endpoint create, you add this flag that's highlighted, like set public network access as disabled. So this means there is no public IP available for endpoint, and all the accesses have to go through from your VNet through a workspace private endpoint. So this secures the ingress. And to secure the outbound communication or the egress from your deployment VMs to the external resources like the storage and ACR, you can do that by just adding this. When you do a deployment create, all you need to do is set the public network access as disabled here. So this way, we create private endpoints from the deployment to the ACR and blob store, for instance, and make sure that there is no internet access from the containers out. So this way you can secure both your ingress and egress, and both are independent in a way that you can have like a public endpoint with a private egress, or like the endpoint which is kind of private, and the egress can be public. So you can set any combinations that you want.
This is so cool, especially when you have sensitive uses that you can do this. This is great stuff. Sethu, where can people go to find out more?
So there is a link that's going to be shared in the bottom of this AI show, and people can just go there, and there is a blog, and there will be links to tutorials on mirror traffic and network isolation.
This has all been really cool, Sethu. Thank you so much for spending time with us, my friend.
Thank you so much, Seth.
All right, we've been learning all about managed online endpoint, now generally available as of Microsoft Build 2022. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Take care. How about them apples? I know. Nice. Private endpoints. Indeed. Hello, Gary. It's good to see you. He's coming up in about a half hour. So we got some good stuff from Gary. There's a question I couldn't answer. What would 50 nodes cost you for the F series VM? I know we have a website that tells you that stuff. I just don't know what it is. I'm sure it's reasonable. I don't know. Okay, so that was custom managed online endpoints. Let me go back to my screen here. If you want to set something up like this yourself, oh yeah, the pricing calculator. Yeah, I think so, Jay. But I got to get more pointy on this, because like I willy-nilly do stuff, right? Because my employment pays for my Azure stuff, and sometimes I look at my bill, I'm like, oh, I should turn stuff off. So I turned stuff off all last week because I make a lot of things and I try a lot of stuff, and so they're gonna get mad at me one day. Maybe they have already. Maybe. Okay, so if you go to Azure Samples Locutus, you'll be able to go through this entire exercise of doing this, right? Where you get a model, and here's how you create an endpoint, online endpoint create, online endpoint create, and then this is my thing, and then this stuff comes out, right? And then for deploying, you fix your deployment YAML. I think it's right here. Deployment YAML. You fix this. Right, notice it doesn't like this because it doesn't see them in my account, right? Because I just cloned this the other day. Because I wrote this in my personal GitHub and then moved it over to the official GitHub. So you can see that that's that. And it's quite simple to do. And you'll see this, and then you'll test your endpoint. And that's the thing that I showed you. Here, let me copy this. This heroic conference will. Let's go to my endpoint here. Doop. Beep. I'm gonna go to our UX experience designers and be like, hey, whenever I push a button, just use this wave file. Beep. They'll be like, totally, Seth. That's the best idea we've heard all week. Boop. This. Maybe don't use this for your marketing copy. This heroic conference will. Hold on. Let me make it more. This heroic conference. Here, let me give you some. This heroic conference will have no lasting effect. Wow, that sounds ugly. No more lasting stains shall appear. None. This heroic conference will end. All will come to the brink. And the what? Finish your sentence, AI. Finish it. But anyways, that's this thing, and this is the MIR endpoint. And I could hit the consume, but then you'd see my keys, and we don't want to do that. And the other cool thing is you can actually see the thing executing, right? Because I spit stuff out. And so you can see it took 0.6 seconds to generate this because it's a fairly big model and the GPU is not that big. If I'm going to be honest, I'm trying to save money here. Which is pretty cool. And then we monitor like usage and stuff. And if you want to be even super more clever, you can use App Insights, just like you would normally use App Insights, and output all sorts of goodness using managed online endpoints. That was like camping. Intense. Intense. Like camping. All right, let's see what I got coming up next here. And at the 12 o'clock hour, we have Minsoo with Responsible AI Dashboard. I wonder if she's coming. You know what, though? I have a friend that has just appeared. I think we should have walk-on music for her. How about this one? Yes! Cassie Breviu!
Hello! How's it going?
Walk-on music makes me feel more important, and so I thought I would play some for you.
It does. I feel like making an entrance just kind of sets the tone for things. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying.
You're a musician too, and setting tones with music is actually what music does. It makes tones.
Mine's usually off tone, so that's why I keep it just in my living room, but it's still fun nonetheless.
So I was hoping, Cassie, that we could watch this stuff with Minsoo, and we could opine together. Are you okay with that?
Let's do it. Sounds awesome.
Should we wait till your walk-on music is over? We've only got like a minute, 30 seconds of silence, or we can just wait for it to be over, or should we just stop it?
We should stop it. Once you walk on, you got to cut the music. Otherwise, it's just awkward.
Done. All right. We have now, and I think it's 12 o'clock, so we can play this now. So I think my for those that are wondering, I auto tweet out, and I think the auto tweet for Minsoo's thing is at like 12:03. So maybe we should walk on a little bit longer. What are we saying here? Notice the green book in the background also. Oh yeah, this one
Should be intense.
Intense.
No, the sound effects with those AI results, though, that was pretty amazing. I think that should be writing all like conference explanations.
Which one? Wait, which one? Tell me, help me.
Well, the one that you just did for the endpoints, like this conference. What was it? This amazing.
Oh yeah,
can never fail, or what was it? The epic.
The epic. It's like this conference will fail, and I was like, oh snap, maybe not use that, or maybe do. Because like everyone likes looking at a train wreck, so maybe I go to a conference that officially advertises itself as a train wreck.
I would be really intrigued. I'd be really intrigued because it's like, would they just make sure like every possible thing that could go wrong at a conference does? Like one time, my the screen behind me, the projector ran out of batteries or like power or something, just stopped working in the middle. That was fun. So I feel like that could be something that could happen at a failed conference.
Or like all the toilets are plugged.
Really good straight to the.
It's Friday. I'm allowed.
We could like have the door locked so people are trying to go into the conference, but they can't. So they have to.
Or maybe the chicken is undercooked a little bit.
Oh God. All the ways. Do you have any good like conference fails that have happened to you?
Oh,
I think the one
pretty much anytime I got on stage, there's some kind of fail. You know, I mean, you've watched me. This is a dumpster fire that's just going on. You know.
Oh,
everyone's like, hey, it's Seth. All right, Cassie, tell us.
I have so many too. Like one time my computer blue screened right before I was supposed to go on for a virtual conference too.
I was on stage once. It was 4,000 people in the audience, like 8,000 watching.
Oh my gosh.
And the head of MSR, Harry Shum, was like, I was part of his whatever keynote. And I go up there to do my demo and it fails. And I was like, this is why we don't like doing things locally, friends. You never know what's going to happen. And here's a little tip, pro tip time. Whenever a fail happens on your machine, you've got to like put physical distance between you and the machine because people will look at you instead of the screen. So I walked away and I'm like, this is why, sometimes you clone a repo, things don't work. You have no idea. Let me go back and show you what it looks like in the cloud. And I'm like, sweating bullets. Obvi, it worked in the cloud. And everyone was like, oh, Seth made that fail on purpose for story purposes. It was recovery. It was a fail. So, all right, maybe we should play this thing from Minsoo now.
Do you need to knock on wood or something now that we talked about this fail?
No, see, the nice thing is that because sometimes we record these things live and everyone sees my mess ups. Mm-hmm. Because these folks couldn't be here and because we had to record these before build, because they were super busy. I just hit play and it's delightfully. All right, so I'm going to do that right now. This is Minsoo talking about responsible AI dashboard. You're not going to want to miss this episode of the AI Show where Minsoo takes us through the responsible AI dashboard and scorecard in Azure Machine Learning. Make sure you tune in. Hello and welcome to this episode of the AI Show. I've got a special guest, Minsoo, who's going to take us through the responsible AI dashboard and scorecard in Azure Machine Learning. Minsoo, it's so good to see you again after you've helped me, in the keynote.
I had to help you, Seth.
I needed a lot of help.
You needed a lot of help, yeah.
That is true. And just a reminder, we built this really cool GPT-2 model that built some heroic marketing text. We wanted to gate it. I handcrafted some data and we built a model, but it turns out that the model was super biased. Minsoo, tell us, how do we fix that?
Well, once you had your model, we ran some responsible AI insights on it and saw some things that we really needed to fix in order to improve the model, both in making sure that it's allocating opportunity to all developers, equally, and also making sure that you're taking into consideration other things when developing your model.
So I'm
Yeah.
guessing this process starts once you have the model. What happens
Correct.
after that?
Yeah, so let's, dive right in. But just to preface it, we are actually providing 3 sets of ways to create your responsible AI insights. So the first set of way is actually a code first experience with the CLI. You can create a YAML configuration file that you can, with one line of CLI, create a pipeline job and run your responsible AI insights to get your dashboard. We also have the corresponding SDK experience for that. And then finally, the third way is a totally no code, just from the Azure Machine Learning Studio UI, end-to-end guided wizard experience. So let's get started with the SDK experience.
Let's do it. Let me bring up your screen.
So this is actually built on the exciting new announcement of the SDK v2 of Azure Machine Learning's Python experience. So what you have essentially is you have the training pipeline, you've already configured it, you have your data sets, you've already run that, then you've registered the model. Then you have all these different components that are going to be able to, you can put them together, customize them to generate a responsible AI dashboard with your insights. So for instance, we have, the registered model that we're getting for you. Then we have a constructor, an explanation, all of these RAI components, and then we gather them together. A great visual way of seeing this is actually something like this, where you have, the model here, and then you have your, training and test data set. You pull it all together into the constructor. Then from the constructor, you can specify which components that you want. Maybe you just want error analysis. Maybe you just want explanations. Anyway, you're able to create all of those components and plug them in and gather them up into this one gather component to generate your responsible AI dashboard.
Interesting. So basically that SDK stuff that you were doing creates this pipeline with all of those components together.
Exactly. So in the SDK, for instance, we have here the RAI constructor component. You can specify the title, what the task type is, regression, because we have a linear regressor, the categorical column names, what's the target value. And then this would be an example of an explanation component. So for instance, you can either add a comment and you would have your output. For causal, you would specify which treatment features you care about. Treatment features are the things that are the levers, right? You want to understand the causal effects of those treatment features on your outcome, which in our case is the score.
Interesting. And so this is the SDK way. You mentioned there was a different way.
Exactly. So once you are able to, set off the SDK, CLI, and also the UI, you can come back always to your model details page in order to view all of your responsible AI insights. And that is where we've located the Create Responsible AI Dashboard wizard. So if you go into your model that you've trained, you can actually create the responsible AI insights right here. Takes you through this really nice guided UI experience. You just specify your data sets, you specify what modeling task type you have. In our instance, it's a regression. Essentially, it's just doing all the things that you were doing in code, but really streamlined in a no-code fashion experience for people who just want to see specific things about create their responsible AI dashboard without having to get their hands dirty with like SDK, Python code, and the CLI. So in our instance, we want to use the model debugging, but we can also click into real life interventions to see the causal analysis component. And essentially here, after you click into that, you specify what your target feature was for your model, and you can see all the different components that are available. So we have your error analysis here, you have your counterfactual what if examples here, you have your explanation here. And so here, this is where you specify everything in the code, but right in the UI. So for instance, I'm gonna, say style and location, I wanna generate a heat map for that. Or the counterfactual examples, I want to have 10 counterfactuals per data point and have them all be between 7 and 10. That's the range where we accepted the programmers, right? So then once you specify those, then you just, configure your experiment and you click create. So
that's awesome. So the boxes from the step before are the same components that you specified in code or in the UI, right?
right. So then once you hit create, it's going to take you to your job, your experiment, and it'll let you know when, your job is done. And so let's hop right into the responsible AI dashboard. So
So
once,
this is the output of the entire process. This is
yeah,
what the output is of this entire job.
exactly.
Got it.
And you can actually see it if you go back to your model details view. You can see it right here in the responsible AI, tab, and you can see multiple dashboards because you're able to configure and they're so flexible. You can create any amount of dashboards for your model, and that's going to really help with maybe auditing, compliance reviews, and you can view these for any of your registered models. So
That's
if you click into one of these, that is what takes you into here.
So what are we looking at here?
So we're looking at all of our awesome tools on a single pane of glass. There's a lot to see here, but just to start, I'll tell you about one of the awesome features we have, which is an integrated compute resource. So here we have one of my compute resources in the workspace running, and that's because the responsible AI, dashboard is really a dynamic visualization dashboard that is showing you some metrics and some visualizations that are calculated on the fly. So for instance, I could retrain this tree based on different features. For example, if I just want to see like everything but the errors on your operating system. But one of the coolest things that I think about this dashboard is this component, error analysis. It gives you this great visualization, a tree-like view that shows you the prediction path to the cohort that's the worst performing, right? So where does your error distribution lie across your data set? What are the underrepresented cohorts that are showing you the most amount of errors? So actually, as you click between these different ones, you can actually see different insights on those. For instance, we can actually see the temporary cohort here, and in all the other components are changed when we are dynamically changing, between nodes of this error tree.
And that's why it has attached compute, because these are calculated dynamically. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. And for instance, the counterfactual examples, if you are creating a counterfactual example, then what you're doing essentially is you're taking all of these examples that we've created for you, right? That's what the counterfactual examples did. But at the end of the day, you can actually just create your own. So if you wanted to have someone who had years of experience be 25 instead of 14, you can see a new prediction value generated right here for any of the features that you perturb for this reference data point. So it really helps you to like drill in and dig deep into maybe like Seth scored a 5. I really want to know how to get him to a 7. So yeah.
That's really, really cool. And this is all just from running that job and all those components together on that model. You get all of this.
Exactly. Yeah, you get the error analysis, you can get a model overview of your performance and also your fairness metrics, your disparity metrics, which is how your, cohorts are actually performing relative to each other in a maybe sensitive feature. You can also see imbalances in your data. We see a lot of people are from Antarctica, like very skewed. And you can also see and you can see like the explanations for why your model made such a prediction. And your counterfactual that we just went over, as well as causal analysis, which is going to tell you what are the causal effects of your treatment features that you specified on your outcome, right? Like, how do I optimize my outcome? And that really helps you make real life interventions and policies for business decision makers.
That's really cool. It feels like you've told us everything. Am I missing anything else? Is there anything else?
Yes, there's one more thing. There's
What?
the responsible AI scorecard. So, for instance, if you are doing a compliance review or you're doing an audit and you want to share, your model and your model development with different stakeholders, you definitely want to have your responsible AI insights kind of compiled and summarized in a way that is really easy to share. So for instance, you're going to be able to also say, click on one of your responsible AI dashboards and be able to generate a scorecard for it. And then this is the scorecard that you would see. You would see the summary, the target values that you would use your domain expertise to be able to say, my threshold is I want every mean square error to be below 2. And if it's not below 2, then I want you to say it does not meet the target. So I'm able to see this really nice summary PDF that you're able to just download from the UI and the Studio UI and share with a variety of stakeholders, both technical and non-technical.
This is so cool. And I feel like we need to have you back on to just drill into some of these components a little bit more. Every time I have you or Manoush on, it's like information overload.
Yeah.
Overload. Sorry about that. Where can people go to find out more about this stuff?
Yeah, so alongside all of these awesome things, which were public previewed at Build, we have awesome documentation outlining what is responsible AI, an overview of what that even means, how are you going to implement it, and the demo that we actually reviewed today, the sample notebook is also available for anyone to view and run. And there's also a lot of information about how to get started and how to generate these things on your own. So all of those information is out there. Please take a look. And we're looking so forward to everyone being able to use these tools to implement their machine learning and development more responsibly.
Well, Minsoo, this has been amazing. We'll have to have you on again so we can go into each component in a detailed manner. Thank you so much for being with us. We've been learning all about the Responsible AI Dashboard and Scorecard in Azure Machine Learning. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. And hopefully we'll see you next time. Take care. What'd you think, Cassie? Oh, I muted you. Hold on. What'd you think?
Are you sure you want to hear what I say? Because you had me muted. No, I'm just kidding.
I do. It was an accident. I just, like, what if like my biggest fear is like one day I have indigestion, and I'm like, and everyone's like, what are those noises? It's my tongue.
Yeah. Anyway, so the RAI stuff, I think is really cool and very forward thinking. There's not a lot of other tools out there that do this. Like, this is
Not
really
this
important work that I think I always say too frequently ethics is thought of after they create a model, and it should be the first thing we think of, and making it part of the model flow helps make sure that your models are ethical. So I think having tools built into the process like this, SDKs that you can just have like as a habit that you put in your process, and making sure that you're creating things that are ethical and don't cause harm.
Yeah, I 100% agree. In fact, let me open this up, because one of the things that I like, to me, this stuff is hard because there's just so much. And here, let me add this so you can see when we go to our sample, Minsoo, where is it? Commerce AI, download endpoint creation, deployment, test. Oh, maybe it's notebooks. No. All right, here it is. Under RAI dashboard, she spent a long time like exploring, like, here's how you set this up. And here, for those that are watching, let me put the link in that so people can go look at this together, hopefully. She goes through and shows you how to set everything up. I have not done this yet. I mean, maybe for our next AI show, we'll just go through this sample. I mean, what do you think? Have you tried any of this stuff, Cassie?
I haven't. I've seen a talk by Manoush, though. She did a really good ethics talk at QCon. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I saw that they've implemented here, and one thing that I found really interesting about it, is understanding where most of your errors happen, and that most models have a particular part that they have most of their errors happening. So like looking at the score of something holistically is like, oh, my accuracy score is this, or my model's scoring this, but that's distributed across everything. This says this is where your problems are, like in this one spot, and narrows it down to really help you understand how to improve a model, which before took a lot of data exploration. Like I remember when I was doing this before anything like this existed, and I was just running tons of inference, putting it in SQL, and then running different queries to try to figure out why things were like not working the way they needed to. And so this just makes such a really cool way to put it right in your face. And then you can take this and jump into the data and see what you need to fix in order to make sure things are working.
Oh, and look at she did a lot. I'll be honest, like this is something I didn't have a chance to like play a lot with, which is kind of unfortunate, as I was working on some of the other parts. But look at this. This is delightful.
Yeah.
Oh, where did I clicked things too fast.
And I think what people need to do too is they just need to start thinking about this as part of the process instead of something extra we have to do. And by putting it right in, like the UI is really, really nice. Like if you're already using Azure Machine Learning, it was like a few steps. So it was like 4 or 5 steps to
Yeah.
like that was, I haven't seen that before. That was really cool.
So let's.
I mean, the SDK is cool too, but.
Well, I don't have any models that are responsible-ish, because this is a large language model. This is a oh, maybe this one. Oh no, I can't do it. ML flow models with scikit-learn flavor, which makes sense, right? Because if you think about it, the ML flow format does some good things for you. It makes it so that it's easy to interface, because it has standard inputs outputs on a model.
Right.
Scikit-learn also deals with like the square of data problems. Like you basically have these things. Oh, that's an arrow. I didn't want that. So you have your table. This is the worst table I have ever drawn, Cassie. So this is a square of data problem, because you can't do counterfactuals, you can't do error analysis if you don't have actual columns, and in large language models you can't do that. And so this is cool that it's literally right here on the model. I think I'm gonna play around with this a little bit more. Maybe on our next AI show we should spend some time on it. What do you think?
I think that's really cool. I think walking through the steps of understanding where it works and how to use it would be super useful. And then people can start thinking about how they can start putting that into their process. And the other really cool thing she showed was the model scorecard, where it like created a presentation about your model for you. It's like, oh, here you go. You don't have to do that work.
Cool. And it was just like a one more thing moment. It was like, hey, there is one more thing. Push this button so you can send a report, so that people will not be surprised if your model is cruddy in some areas. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that there's always like an acceptable threshold, right? Like depending on what your model's doing, there's certain things that maybe aren't as big of a deal if there's a little bit higher error rate, and there's other ones that will cause a lot more harm too. So just understanding where the errors are, to understand what you need to do to change it. Because like depending on what your model is doing depends on, what you really care about. If it's credit applications or, cancer, true or false cancer things. I always think about those ones, and it's like those ones you really don't want, like a false positive. And so really thinking about what you're working on and where your errors are happening and what's important to change based on it. And then being able to have that so quickly versus having to get all that data yourself and aggregate it.
I played with it, and I wish I would have set it up before today. I just didn't have the chance to, but it's quite cool to be able to actually go in there and do stuff with models in a way that's like, oh, okay. It's like let's see, what's Janice Q telling us here. Let me bring us up here. It's like flow model. Yes. ML flow models. Now, here's the cool thing, and Cassie, maybe you can explain it better than I will too. ML flow is awesome because it's starting to centralize the way we think about like the fundamental pieces of machine learning. So you have a model, right? You have the log that you output, right? You have the registry, and so ML flow models are cool because they define the input and output. So yeah, like a flow model. I mean, what is your sense of ML flow? Cassie, have you used it?
I haven't, but I think I should, because don't they have neat data versioning stuff as well built in? Like there's a lot of different tooling within it, is my understanding. But I always use Azure Machine Learning. Like I always use Azure Machine Learning. So And I know you can use ML Flow in Azure Machine Learning, but there's so many things that we just get out of the box with that that I don't
That's
have to
true.
go look for other tools, but I really should, just out of curiosity, go use
Well,
them.
let's spend some curiosity calories right now.
Yes.
All right. So ML Flow has the 4 things, right? The tracking, which is experiment tracking, the projects, the model, and the registry. And now for those that are looking at this, like, well, what is it that they do? This is an open source sort of implementation that's supposed to unify the way we do all these things. So for example, in Azure Machine Learning, we have a way to do ML Flow tracking that just sends everything to AML, which is super nice. ML Flow projects, I don't know if we have anything about that, but ML Flow models is the other thing, because it has a standard definition of how it saves files.
Okay.
So there's this ML model file that basically describes like what's in there. Like here's the sklearn version, here's the model file, which is just pickled, here's the loader function. And these are all the files in here. So for example, if you wanted to run this, in theory, you don't need to know very much other than this is how you run it, this is the weights, and these are the environments. It's super nice. It's super nice. Because then you don't have to really think about like, well, how do I run this? Because model files are quite ambiguous. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. I'm currently trying to use an open source one right now for style transfers to create some custom style models. And it's like you go through and of course it just doesn't work right away. And it's like, oh, I need to add this package and I need to do that. And it's like, it seems like, oh, just run this command, but it never is.
Yes. And then there's this package that conflicts with that one. And then are you right on the right OS or whatever?
Yep.
But with an ML Flow model, it tells you exactly what requirements to use. And it has a signature. It supports these kinds of signatures.
That's nice.
So input and output, right? Which is super duper handy if you think about it.
So do you have to do a lot of work to get that? Or do you know if when you just save that format, it can like deduce that from the model? Do you know?
I'll tell you. So
Okay.
let me see if I can find my here. So sometimes let me go to some jobs here. They just change experiments to jobs. I keep getting confused. So sometimes if you're using auto logging with ML Flow, if I go to my Roxy, which is my rock paper scissors one, you'll see that in the outputs I really didn't do anything. It just saved it for me. I didn't do anything because I was doing auto logging. It knew that when it was done training, it should save it out. And you can see the ML model file is this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then it has the run ID when it was created. It has the data folder because there's some data that needs to go along with it. Like here's the pickle information. There's the model, PyTorch model. Here's the Conda dependencies. And then the requirements if you're a pip person. But like I didn't do anything. It just saved it. But I don't think it has the signature on this.
Yeah, I don't see it.
And so I think if you're doing ML Flow, I'm sorry, if you're doing scikit-learn, I think maybe it does it for you, or you can save this. Let me see. Each column-based input and output, blah, blah, blah. There's the tensor signature enforcement, name ordering enforcement. Here we go. How to log with signature. To include a signature in the model, pass signature object as an argument to the appropriate log model. And this is all supported in Azure ML. So I guess what you do is you create a signature, and it looks like it's just there's a way to do infer signature. And then when you log the model, you pass in a signature as the object. And I did not pass in a signature, which is cool. And then look, oh, wow, this is delightful. Holy cow, look at this. That's cool, right? Because you're basically saying, here's the schema for the input, and here's the model signature, and then it looks like the output is an output schema, right? Look at that. I don't know why Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's interesting. So like when you serialize an Onyx model, you also give it kind of input and output signatures that you can then grab from the model. And this is all Pickle. And because I work with Onyx so much, I'm curious, is Onyx also supported, do you know, in this?
I think it would. I mean, I
Like,
think it would be. I think it would be. Let's see. Let me see. Let me go to ML Flow. Let's look for Onyx. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there it is. Cool.
Looks like there's an ML Flow. Onyx provides APIs for logging and loading Onyx models in the ML Flow model format.
Okay, that's cool. I got to play with this.
That's way cool because this type of signature is way more helpful than, and I love Lutz Rotor's, Netron, but it basically just gives you tensor shapes on the input. It'd be great to have these things named somehow, I don't know. I think it's good.
Yeah, sometimes the naming's nice. Sometimes some other things you have to know in order to use it. So like it's useful to understand the shape and things that you need. Like sometimes it's an extra step though, because I have to know what the input is. And I might not really want to have to do that. Like adding a label when a label is not needed, example.
Yeah, so. Agreed. So just to round this out, if I'm going to my models and I'm going to my Rochambeau model, for example, notice that it's saying it needs to be an ML Flow format with a scikit-learn flavor. This is so that I think we can infer columns and print stuff out in a really nice way, maybe. And then that way we can execute it and run it and do stuff. And scikit-learn, just because those are standard things. But here's a learn more about conversions to ML Flow. This is nice. But it's not hard to change to ML Flow. I mean, like tracking a job, like basically I think we're just ML Flow from here on out. We have an API too to do logging and stuff, but like everyone's using this, so we thought, why not? All right, up next we have Gary Pretty to talk all about the evolution of power virtual agents. Let's take a look at that right now. Gary, why don't you tell us who you are? You're not going to miss this episode of the AI Show where we talk about the evolution of power virtual agents with my good friend Gary. Make sure you tune in. Hello and welcome to this episode of the AI Show. We're going to talk all about the evolution of power virtual agents with my good friend Gary. Gary, why don't you tell us who you are and what you do? You've been on the show many times. We're glad to have you back, buddy.
Yeah, I have. It's great to be back. Hi, everyone. My name is Gary Pretty. I'm a principal product manager on the Power Virtual Agents team. And so we enable anyone to build chatbots and virtual agents in the Power Platform.
Fantastic. So last time we had you on, we've had you on a couple of times, but just give us an overview of bot framework. And you said the evolution of Power Virtual Agents. And I know we talk about how is this all related? Fill us in.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. So, with Microsoft Conversational AI over the last few years, we've had two strands really. We've had Power Virtual Agents, which exists and lives inside the Power Platform, and was this incredibly intuitive, low-code platform that anybody could use to build some, pretty good chatbots. And we've seen incredible sort of usage and take-up over there. Then over in Azure, we've had Azure Bot Framework and the Azure Bot Framework Composer, which I was on talking about the last couple of times. And this is really more focused at pro developers and gave you a lot more flexibility in terms of what the visual designer could do, and a lot more power to build more sophisticated conversations, to model more natural conversations. But the thing we kept hearing from customers is we actually need to marry these two together. And so what we've done now is we've built from the ground up a brand new unified authoring canvas within Power Virtual Agents that can be used by citizen developers and pro developers to build very sophisticated bots without needing to sacrifice the benefits that you get from the SaaS service, where you don't have to manage any of those resources. We do all of that for you. And pro developers and citizen developers can collaborate.
So that's really cool. So basically, it's from both ends, you know, from the pro and the low to no code, pro developer, low no code developer, basically you're bringing them together. Am I understanding this right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You've nailed it. And it's really important because we have this idea of what's called a fusion team, which is a team that's made up of different roles and different disciplines. And 5 out of 6 organizations that we work with today have these fusion teams. And they want to be able to collaborate together, just like we co-author, Microsoft Word documents or PowerPoint decks. They want to and need to collaborate on these bot building projects, and so that's what we're enabling with this with these updates.
And that's really cool. I'm on the pro dev side, but I've been leaning towards solving problems with low no code, just because it's like, why do I need to write something if there's something that's already really nice? But I feel like I want to see how this is all done. Can you show us?
Absolutely, yeah. So let's dive in and take a look at the canvas. So right now I'm in what is in Power Virtual Agents, and this is our brand new technology preview, which you can sign up for today, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. So the first thing I want to do is to jump into the greeting topic. And for those of you who used Power Virtual Agents before, you're going to notice some immediate updates. We've added some productivity improvements like cut, copy, and paste. They seem like small things to some people who've had them for a long time, but man, they are productivity boosters. For those people who've used Bot Framework Composer before, you're going to see a lot of similarities here now with some of the new actions and capabilities that we've got available. You can now do things like manage your variables, where you can actually manipulate your data, whereas previously variables could only be populated in response to a specific question. And let's take a look at the greeting node specifically. Here I've got my greeting node, and one of the first updates that we've made is the ability for you to add multiple message variations to make sure that your bot doesn't sound stale or rigid over time if somebody's interacting with it repeatedly. So here I've got my same greeting message, but I've got it written 3 different ways. And when the user actually talks with the bot, it's going to pick one of these at random, and then next time it'll pick another one. So that can really help with the experience. And again, what I'm showing you here is really the features that absolutely anybody can use, where we're really improving that low code experience. We'll take a look at the add menu on the send a message node, which I'm using here, and now you can see that previously we could only send plain text messages, and now we've completely broken down that barrier, where you can now easily add images, you can add videos, you can add cards. We'll look at adaptive card later. So I can, say, okay, you know what, I'd like to include an image, an image of my cafe. And as soon as I do that, we get a preview showing me what that's going to look like for the end users. And you can start to see how this low code experience has just been really accelerated for somebody who's building this out.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is
okay.
Really cool. It's reminiscent of the Bot Framework Composer that I saw before, but
yes,
much revamped.
Right, and I think the point is, right, Bot Framework Composer had some incredible features, but what we've done here is we've taken all of those awesome features and the power and flexibility that you had, and we've infused it into the intuitive low-code platform that is Power Virtual Agents. And so it's just this incredible partnership. Just to highlight one of the other things I can do here is I can add quick replies now, which are suggestions for users as to what they might say back to the bot. So I could say, make a reservation, or store hours. So the user has an idea of what they might say, and they can actually reply to the bot in 1 click. So I'm going to hit save on that topic. And the next thing I'm going to do is actually I'm going to jump over to another one of our topics. We've actually improved the topic navigation now, so you can switch between them in just a couple of clicks. Previously, it was a lot more convoluted. So let's go take a look at our reservation topic, which I've already started to build out. Here we've got...
So a topic is just basically a flow, a conversation flow thing, basically?
Yes. Yeah, so a topic you can think of as a piece of your conversation, right? And it's a reusable piece. So, and it's usually broken down by use case. So in this case, we've got one topic for making a reservation.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so here for making a reservation, we are asking a question of the user to ask them what date and time would they like for their reservation. And then based on that, we are checking whether or not that is today using our condition node. Using the friendly UI, we can set the sort of the top and bottom of that condition. But what we can now also do is build on top of those conditions with more flexibility thanks to our new PowerFX integration. Now, for those of you who don't know, PowerFX is an Excel-like formula language that's already used across Power Platform in products like Power Apps, etc. And really enables pro developers, brings really the power that you need to have more flexibility when you're building out your conversations, but also opens the door for those sort of more low-code developers who are coming in and can actually start to grapple this. Because if you've used Excel, you can use PowerFX.
Yeah.
So to do that, what I'm going to do is, what I should have pointed out earlier is we can make reservations, but the bot is telling you that reservations can only be made for the next 7 days. And at the moment, we're not enforcing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a condition. And that's going to add a new branch. And by default, we get the friendly, sort of very usable UI, very familiar to anybody who's used one of these sort of tools before. But what I can do now is head over and I can hit change to formula. And once I do that, I can pop this out and I can go straight over to my new embedded PowerFX formula editor. And PowerFX now actually powers the entire variable system in within Power Virtual Agent. So not only can I use it to build custom conditions, more bespoke conditions, I can also use it to manipulate my data, set my variables arbitrarily. It really is a big deal. And we've even introduced more complex data types like records and lists as well.
Yeah, this is cool because if someone has like the memory muscle for this kind of thing, it's cool to be able to reuse it across all the Power stuff. So
exactly. Yeah, exactly right. And so you can see here that actually what I've done, instead of having just a simple condition, I've used the date diff function within PowerFX to compare the reservation date time that we accepted from the user earlier with today's date. And I'm checking the difference. I'm making sure it is somewhere between today and 7 days out. And if it's not, then I can click insert. That will add my branch. And I can just send the user a quick message and say, reservations need to be within the next 7 days, right? And so that then adds very quickly a nice new branch to my topic.
Yeah, and that's cool because it's like, if you're used to doing Excel and stuff like that, you're literally creating like an entire conversation just by hitting the plus with a conditional.
Exactly. And so if I pop open the test canvas right now, which I just did, I can do from the toolbar here, you'll see that the changes that we've just made, I can now test immediately. We can see that it's picked one of our messages at random. It's displayed our image that we added earlier to the message node and the greeting topic. I can hit make a reservation. That's going to trigger the topic that we've just made some more updates in. And now if I say something like, June 30th, 2022, right, for my reservation, what should happen there is it says now reservations need to be within the next 7 days because it's correctly executed that PowerFX expression that we just added by the formula editor.
That's so slick. And I don't know. I do machine learning and those things are hard to demo live. And so this was all like, you just did this. It wasn't like fake. And it felt very slick from a user perspective.
Yeah, it honestly, some of these things have been much harder to do in the past, and would have been impossible for somebody who was, more from a less technical, non-technical background. And so, we're bringing these together. Images, for example, there were ways around it with Power Virtual Agents by trying to sort of use Power Automate in a particular way and return some, some data, and you try and hack it together. But we want to make sure that those things that are so crucial to conversation design are just easy, right? Easy and intuitive, and you don't have to look at the docs. It just works.
So you showed us some of the cool responses, being able to embed like stuff, make them really rich. You showed us the Power effects. Any other cool things that you have up your sleeve here?
Yeah, so if you remember last time when I was on, we talked a bit more about speech bots. Do you remember that?
Right. So, oh yeah, we did the demo with the telephone that it called my telephone and everything, which was really cool. Any advances there?
Yes. So last year we announced within Power Virtual Agents the general availability of Dynamics 365 voice channel, where you can use a Power Virtual Agents bot to create an intelligent IVR if you're using Dynamics 365 customer service. And that was an incredible step forward for people who want to get started quickly and easily build out these intelligent IVRs. We also introduced a bunch of speech first authoring capabilities inside of Composer and integrated that with Azure Communication Services. Well, once again, just like we've been seeing, we're bringing these two things together. And we are now announcing native telephony support directly within Power Virtual Agents with a new telephony channel, which is in preview. You can use this preview to connect an existing telephone number. Honestly, it takes less than 60 seconds to do that. And we've got plans to allow you to connect to your other contact centers. I mean, the reality is many customers out there already have a contact center and they want to be able to integrate, intelligent bots with them. So we're going to enable that to allow you to route your customers to your intelligent IVR, but then onto human agents when needed.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. So you basically just add a phone number and now it's all kind of just magically enabled. Is that right?
Exactly. And I think one of the other awesome things is if we jump back over to our topics list, I got let me see where it's gone. If I jump into my greeting topic, right? So here we can see the greeting topic that we modified earlier. And we're saying, hey, welcome to Contoso, or thanks for dropping by. Well, you'll notice here that I've got this new little drop down in the top right-hand corner of the node. So I can now switch over to the speech tab on this node. And what this allows me to do is provide tailored responses for when I'm using this bot over speech. So I can add a message variation and say something like, thanks for calling Contoso Cafe. How can I help? For example, you could say, make a reservation, right? And so what that's doing is it's providing a speech alternative. And this bot could now work through your website, through web chat, or it could work over the telephone. And I can even insert things like SSML tags. So if I wanted a small break between the how can I help and for example, I can hit my SSML tags drop down and I can click on break. And that's going to insert the SSML tag for me. Just like that, I can immediately start really finely controlling how my bot is talking. And the last thing I'll show you here is if we head over to the general page and we have a new speech tab in the general settings page. I can even pick from one of those awesome neural voice fonts that the cognitive services make available. And you can see here that there's so many available, and we can even test what that voice font looks like. So folks who've never been exposed to these voice fonts, they don't really know what the cognitive services are. We're just surfacing it for them. And so I can do things like I can make my bot sound angry if I want to. So let's see if it will work.
Hi, I am a bot. I can help with account questions, orders, store information, and more.
It is angry.
It is very angry, right? So I'm not suggesting that people should build an angry bot, but if you want to, you can build an angry bot, and that will set the default speaking style and voice for your bot. But then you can use those SSML tags to actually override it at the message level. So it really is a huge leap forward for building intelligent IVRs and making that possible in connecting to other systems using Power Virtual Agents.
That is amazing. Basically, you have if it's a text thing, you have the drop down to do the text stuff. But if it's a speech thing, you can customize that option right in the canvas, so to speak.
Yep, exactly. And there's more to come as well. So we will enable you to do things like enable or disable what we call barging, which is, let's say the bot is reading out a long greeting like it was just then. You want to probably by default be able to allow the user to interrupt that because maybe they've they've called before, they know they just want to say, I want to make a reservation. But let's say you are reading out terms and conditions and they are incredibly important and everybody must listen to them. Well, you can enable or disable barge in at the individual message level to make sure that you can control that. And we'll add things like silence detection as well, so that if you ask the user a question and they don't respond, then we can send an event to your bot and your bot can then respond in the appropriate manner, however you deem fit.
With the angry voice, obviously.
I think so, yes. Why aren't you saying anything?
This is so cool. Or Gary, where can people go to find out more, my friend?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, at Build, we've announced a technology preview. So this is available to try now. You can sign up for that technology preview by checking it out at this link below. This takes you to our blog with all of our Build announcements and all of the details about how you can get started to sign up. And we are so excited to get people's feedback. The initial feedback we've had from folks, even just in the last few days, has been amazing.
Well, I'll give you my feedback. This is delightful. I feel like I need to add some of this stuff to my website. Maybe even have a call this number if you want to ask me something, and I can respond with, Seth angry or Jenny angry or whatever. Don't ask me questions.
Exactly.
Send me a text message. This is so cool. Gary, thank you so much for being with us, my friend.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us. You as well. We've been learning all about the evolution of Power Virtual Agents here on the AI Show. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Take care. How about them apples? That was cool, right? Oh, you muted yourself this time. Not on me.
Oops.
That was cool.
But yeah,
right?
no, it was, what?
That was really cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was super cool. I love Power Platform. Like, I've done some custom component stuff where you can, and I like the way that they fuse together no code development or low code development and then customization with coding. And since I started in Excel formulas, when I was like, yes, I would have loved this in my citizen developer days.
Well, I've got a surprise for you then, Cassie. Guess who's here? Gary himself.
Yay! Hey, Gary.
Hey, folks.
Dude, that was awesome. Jack asked, where can I learn more about the updates? We put a link there. Trying to remember what it was. What was it? Hold on. I have it in my paper.
Okay, you find it. Highly technical solution.
It's not in my paper.
Okay, well, I can tell you the aka.ms link, right? So you can head over to aka.ms/PVA build 22. And from there, you can get the details of all of our announcements from Build, about the technology preview that we've announced. You can find out how you can sign up. I would encourage anybody who's interested in the update, whether you've used PVA before or not, to head over, sign up for the technology preview. That's going to be running for a limited time, where you can get in and you can try everything that we just showed you in the video.
I have it right here. Boom.
Hey,
yo. Seth Virtual Intelligence made with Power Virtual Agents. Any intelligence I have, Janiscu, number 7, is indeed virtual. I
think we should make an angry virtual Seth. I think.
Yes, I think.
Who will shout at Seth when he does things wrong, right? So if Seth mutes somebody by mistake, then
like,
virtual angry Seth will shout.
I dropped my mouse. If you heard things falling, it was my mouse falling down. Virtual intelligence is what I have.
It's like that song Virtual Insanity, right? But virtual intelligence. So that's what happens in my brain when song breaks into song randomly. But this is really neat and empowers a lot of people to do things that used to be very hard, and now they can simply create workflows to, like, I think about small businesses too, like small business that this can automate some of those things that they might not have people to do. So
yeah, it's I think it's going to be a huge leap forward for the Power Platform and Power Virtual Agents, and what we've just shown is really just scratching the surface as to what we'll be bringing in public preview and GA. So even things like a list variable support, the ability to loop over a list, the ability to dynamically power your multiple choice questions. So maybe I go get some data back from Power Automate, and I can then say, okay, I've now got a number of different stores, and I can dynamically serve that up to the user rather than needing to know that at authoring time, and even more advanced features, right? And as we said, we're bringing these two worlds together. So the ability to have contextual events and triggers. So let's say I'm in the middle of my reservation topic. I can have a contextual trigger for help. So if somebody says that they're stuck or they need assistance, we can detect that intent, but we can combine that with your location within the conversation, and we can present you with a response, providing you with help about reserving the restaurant. Whereas if you're somewhere else, then maybe we would provide you the general help or more contextual help for the other use case.
Good gravy. Like I said, I used this stuff a long time ago, and I was like, whoo. But now I'm looking at it, and like as fast as you can think about how a conversation would go, you could just drag things on.
Yeah. I mean, you saw me do it there. The great thing about getting to do shows like this is it really demonstrates the fact that this stuff is not fake. It's real, and it really is straightforward to do. Right, I took a I took one of our out-of-the-box bots. I had already added a simple reservation topic, but everything that you saw me do in that video was real time.
And if you noticed in the video, we didn't have this thing. This is new, and I think if you're going to build a Power Virtual Agent, I think this will help. Are you ready for this? Perseverance.
Nice.
Means never giving up.
Aww.
Yeah, I colored this and wrote it myself. Why are you laughing?
Is it virtual theft?
Virtual theft. Like, for example, how can I show perseverance? Being better at building. And obviously, he was going to add Power Virtual Agents in there.
Obviously.
Yeah,
Obviously.
I mean, so I think this is great. If you want to go try some of that stuff out, like this is probably one of the lowest hanging fruits of doing something to maximize ROI, like to help people. Because there's like, if I had a virtual assistant that would answer all the dumb questions I get, like, Dad, do I have to clean my room before I go out? Yes. Reply in angry voice. But
and you can do that. You can do that. You can customize the speaking style per message.
Per message.
Oh
yeah.
I need one for chores. Like we just need it to call my child and like tell him when chores are due, like in the angry voice, like clean your room or
I think there's a use case there. There's a new startup, I think. Yeah.
What do you mean? And obviously, no, they'd be like, I already did it. And we already know what that flow is.
Yep.
You didn't do it right, did you? Did you do it today? Did you clean around the corner? Is your underwear still on the floor of the bathroom?
No, they have to submit a picture to the bot of the clean room. And then we use computer vision to validate.
Exactly, which we can call via Power Automate integration. I think it's a beautiful story.
Oh my goodness. I feel like effectively we are outsourcing parenting to the computer, which is what the TV did for us in the 80s.
And then the iPad. So question, so you said that I can easily, like within my workflow, I can offload something to Power Automate. Like if I want to do a Power Automate flow and then it can come back and then it'll continue my flow in the Power Virtual Agent. So I have all of the functionality that I have in Power Automate available to me in the Power Virtual Agents.
Yes, so you can use any of the out-of-the-box connectors that exist within Power Automate. You can create your own flows.
Amazing.
And it's just as simple as add a Power Automate node to your canvas. We'll go execute that. You can pass in variables, you can get variables back, and then you can carry on. And that's really how we think about it, right? Your conversational logic should be in Power Virtual Agents. Your business logic and other things should be in a more appropriate place like Power Automate.
That was the walk-off music that I slowly increased because we're literally out of time. Y'all are the bestest. This has been another episode of the AI Show. Thanks so much for coming. We'll see you next time. Same time, same bat station. Friday, June 17th. Make sure you tune in. Thanks so much for being with us, and we'll see you next time. Take care.